Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Think Tank community, a place for all players, parents, and coaches can go that are passionate about the game for a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. We are bringing on one of the biggest people in the movement of making youth sports better, John O'Sullivan, the founder of Changing the Game Project. This is the second time we've had John on, and the first time we had him on was one of our most downloaded episodes back in 2021. So really excited to get him back on. A few updates about the Hockey Think Tank before we get over to my man, Jeffrey Jehu Lavecchio. We want to thank Barry Smith, 7-time Stanley Cup winner, for coming on and talking some hockey with our Hockey Think Tank community. What a conversation that we had with him. And honestly, what a cool experience for all our community members to be able to ask some questions and talk some hockey with one of the smartest hockey people in the world. And that's what you get with our Hockey Think Tank community. So thank you so much to Barry for doing that. Now, with that being said, let's bring on the talent of the podcast, the one Jeffrey Jehu Lavecchio. Vex, what's up today, brother?
Not much, my man. Having a great day, man. Having a great day. This is an unbelievable podcast, and for me, it's pretty funny. Some of the things that he says on this podcast, as you guys will hear, I literally put on my social media yesterday. I gave a speech this morning to a large nationwide company, and John at the end of the podcast is talking about his book and some things that he has in his book, and it's literally exactly what I said to this company today. So there's tons of synergies in the way that Topher and I think, and the way John thinks, and obviously he's super accomplished and has done so much in his career and helped so many teams and athletes around the world. So this is obviously, he's one of our most downloaded episodes ever. Glad to have him back for a round two and just provide more value for everybody.
Everybody, there we go. No, this was a great episode. It's really top of mind for me right now too. I just got back from the USA Hockey winter meetings down in Nashville, where they bring in all their hockey development people, bring in all of their volunteers, that are on the boards of these affiliates and stuff. And so it's really top of mind. And then writing this blog that I put out today, it is a Wednesday, on Tier 1 hockey is out of control. My phone has not stopped blowing up all day, and it is absolutely insane. Go read it. We don't have to rehash it here on the podcast, but basically I detail Tier 1 hockey's out of control. It's absolutely out of control.
I love the comments on your Twitter today. I was commenting between meetings this morning and reading everybody's that they're talking about.
I know.
Everybody's feeling it.
I have to imagine it pissed a few people off, but that's okay. If you're pissed off about what I wrote, then you're part of the problem.
Is this a Friday face-off? I don't think so.
No, it's not. This is a great one. But anyways, too professional, too expensive, too much pressure on people. FOMO, it's gotten out of control. It's absolutely gone out of control, and we need to change that for the betterment of our sport. And so it was really cool to have John on the podcast, and I got to ask him, how do we do that? How do you fundamentally fix what's so entrenchedly broken? That is our youth sports model and our youth hockey model in particular with what we talk about. And so John is just an absolute wealth of knowledge. The company that he created, Changing the Game Project, is literally, a lot of it is the Hockey Think Tank for the greater sports world. And his background's in soccer. He was a Division I soccer coach at the University of Vermont. He was a great soccer player in his day. And so it was really cool to be able to get some perspective on some other sports and what they're doing to help to try to change the game and help to inform us on how we can do that with hockey. And so, yeah, like I said, one of the most downloaded podcasts that we've had in our past. And it was funny. He reached out to me a couple weeks ago because we email back and forth every now and again. And somebody sent him our podcast episode when we talked about the ridiculousness of Tier 1 Mite AAA. and somebody sent it to him because this is the world that he lives in, and he's trying to change the game in other sports. And so he got a good kick out of that podcast. And so he reached out and he's like, hey, if you ever want to talk some shop and do a second round, let's do it. So I was like, absolutely, let's do it right away. And just a great guy, a great wealth of knowledge. If you're an adult in this hockey world, you're going to get so much out of this podcast. It's incredible.
100%. 100%. I didn't know that he was a coach at Vermont. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I knew that he was working there, but I thought it was in a different arena there. But man, you guys are going to love this one. He really is the hockey think tank for the sports think tank world. Type
Sports
of
think
thing.
tank.
I'm stupid. You're smart. You're good looking. I'm not very attractive.
Happy Gilmore coming out with another movie. Can't wait. Absolutely cannot wait. Actually, that's a question that we should put in our 10 questions. We need to change that. What are your top 3 movies of all time? So for those of you who are not in our community yet, we do a 10 questions with all of our podcast guests that's only gets housed in the community, and we have a good time with them. And one of the questions we ask is, what's your top, it's a funny question, but what are your top 3 TV shows of all time? And we should do, what are your top 3 movies of all time? Maybe we'll switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do that.
All right. So anyways, this was an awesome conversation with John. Before we do get over to him, we do have some people to thank. First, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com. Ice Hockey Systems is the best website for all your coaching education needs. They have some big things coming down the hopper that we're collaborating with them on, and just unbelievably good people. And on the website, thousands of drills, whiteboard explanations from some really high-level hockey people, the ability to go in and actually draw your drills up and send them out to your team, and actually create a library too. So you can have all your drills in one place, and you can get this for your entire organization. We have partnered with them to do an associations platform where you can get this for every single coach in your organization. And it's just a phenomenal product and service, a company that has very similar values that we do, and doing just such an unbelievable job in helping the community of hockey be better. And so go to icehockeysystems.com today and look up that associations platform. Jeffrey Lecchio, it is your turn. Go.
Want to say thank you to Train Heroic. Guys, Train Heroic is the unbelievable platform that allows me to work with 20 plus organizations and teams across North America right now. Currently, I'm working with 9U teams for simple at-home stuff that players can be doing a few times a week, up to Division III NCAA college teams. Last year, I worked with an NCAA Division I college team when they got in a pinch for the first 6 out of 7 months of their season, and they couldn't get a strength coach up to Alaska. I work with USHL teams, NAHL teams, NA3 teams, midget teams, everybody. Also, my off-season online training program is going to be dropping here in the next 2 months or so as hockey seasons start to end. I can help your player, your team, your organization train much smarter and much harder. Over 30,000 athletes have trained with me online. There is a reason I will help you feel better and perform better for a fraction of the price. And you can go to any gym you want to and just open up the app. Workouts are in there, videos demonstrated and coached by me. Please, coaches, reach out to me. I give massive discounts when teams and organizations sign up to train with me online. So a massive thank you to Train Heroic. Also want to say thank you to Cure Nutrition. You guys know I had 14 conks on cookie. Doesn't always work, so I got to take that CBD twice a day, every single day. I take Rise and Zen. You guys have heard me talk about it on the podcast for years. I've been taking CBD since my last professional season, 2017, 2018. If you have any questions about CBD, please reach out to me or go to curednutrition.com. Use my discount code GMBM.
And we also want to thank Helios Hockey. Unbelievable product. It is a sensor that you put into your shoulder pad that tracks your every movement while you were on the ice. And it gives you real-time data and real-time feedback on what you're doing. So some of the big things that come through there is it gives you great feedback on your stride length, stride mechanics, things like that. Also gives you a hustle score, which the kids that have Helios Hockey absolutely love. Also, the game changer with this is it pairs up with your video, whatever video camera you're using, whether it's Live Barn video camera, Apple phone, iPhone, or an iPad. And it cuts up your shifts for you right there. So you get your shifts right after the game. So unbelievable product. And go to helioshockey.com. And if you use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, you will get 20% off your pro annual or pro 24-month subscription. Or you can go to hockeythinktank.com/teams, and you can get this for your entire team at a huge discount. Also, want to thank Crossbar. This is an unbelievable website that can help you with any software solution in running the operations of your hockey program. So what does it have? It has an unbelievably sleek website design, registration for your season, or things like drop-ins or clinics or lessons. It's got a 5-star communication app to help you communicate with all the people within your club, financial tools and reporting, club scheduling, volunteer and facility management. Like, this is a one-stop shop for your software, your website, and running your youth hockey organization. So go to crossbar.org and check it out today. Unbelievable product. Also, thank you to so many of you who continue to support our podcast. We absolutely love you guys. If you can do us a solid, the only thing we ask for in return is to like our stuff on social media and comment on our stuff on social media and leave ratings and reviews on your podcast app. Subscribe to the show, download it, all that stuff. It helps with our algorithm, and our mission, our goal is to create a more positive hockey world and hockey culture. And we feel like if you can help us to spread the word on that and get us into some more people's ears, it'll just continue to spread the positive messages that we try to spread. And if you can help us to do that, that would be very, very helpful. So we love you guys. We appreciate you so much. So best part about the podcast is the guests that we get to bring on and sharing their knowledge with you. And this guy, man, has so much knowledge on youth sports. So without further ado, let's bring on John O'Sullivan. Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast. He's out west in Oregon, and he is one of our most downloaded previous episodes, doing a ton of great work with U Sports. We got John O'Sullivan. John, how are we doing today?
Guys, it's great to be back, man. We were just saying October of 21, so it's been a minute.
It's been a minute, absolutely. But yeah, we had such a great conversation the last time. I've been following your work so much. I think so much of what you're doing aligns so much with what we're doing and just kind of speaking some truth to youth sports and trying to solve the infinite problems that the professionalization of youth sports has given so many of our families. And so just to kind of start some things off here, John, I want to know what your mission is. Again, like I said, we're so aligned, and I have to imagine that our mission is so similar, but like, what gets you out of bed in the morning and why, like, tell me about the evolution of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to put it in a sentence, which I started Changing the Game project back in 2012. And so it's been, 12 years now. And sort of one of the first things I wrote, and maybe this isn't exactly appropriate to hockey, but you can use your own version, is put some more play back in play ball, right? That sport is supposed to be about play and enjoyment and fun for children and growth, and not just physical growth or performance growth, but character growth and human development. And and it just keeps moving further and further away from that. And so, when I started this, my own kids were 5 and 6, and I was kind of looking at the ecosystem as a parent for the first time, and not just as a coach, going, man, this is kind of crazy. Well, now my kids are almost 18 and 19, right? And so I've watched them grow up, and one's in college and one will be in college next year. And I've watched them kind of grow up in the system, and done my best to take my own advice, and sometimes not take my own advice, and navigate something so that at the end of it all, they could look back on their sports experience as positive ones, but most importantly, be like healthy, happy, active for life human beings. And that was always the goal of their mom and I. And so it's been interesting, because now I go and give talks, and I'm like, I don't just talk of this as hypothetical. I've also sort of done it as a parent too.
So how like, we have a ton of parents, hockey parents that follow what we do and listen to our podcast and stuff like that. If you can go back and do anything differently, maybe, one of those questions, like if you can go give your younger self advice, when you were just kind of starting this, what's changed? Like, what do you kind of see differently? What kind of advice would you give your younger self as a parent when it relates to youth sports?
I think most parents would say this, and there's a saying, right? The days are long, but the years are short. And, so when your kids are older, you realize how fast it goes by, and how important I think it is to take the moments that sports gives you, and enjoy those, and be the adult in the room. And again, I was lucky. My kids were very, I had a lot of coaching experience when my kids were born. I had been a college coach, and I'd been a college and a pro player, and and then a youth coach. So I had a lot of reps. And then, as my kids grew up in this environment, I at least had books and research and all these things to draw back on, and sort of just take a pause every time something came up, and be like, okay, well, wait a sec. What's the real lesson in this? Or what's good about this situation? And so, yeah, but if I could go back, I would have enjoyed it more. Like, I think the hard thing as a parent is, accepting the fact sometimes that your kids don't want something as much as you did, right? So to be good at any sport, it takes so much drive and dedication, and you got to give them the right genetics and all these sort of things that not necessarily everyone is into, right? And that's okay. They can still have a very successful club and high school career and not want to play in college, and that's okay. And some kids just from moment one, like, they got it, they are driven, that's all they want to do. And just knowing that, like, all right, well, that might not be my kid, and that's okay.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you the $1 million question here, John, because this is a question that I get all the time in the confines that we live in of what youth sports and youth hockey look like today. And you mentioned, obviously, if you want to be great at anything you do, you got to work at it. You got to put in the time. You got to have the drive. You got to have the grit. You got to have the determination. The world that we live in right now, there's no shortage of people who are trying to get kids to be on the ice more and like drive them and drive them and drive them and drive them and drive them. And so one of the things that I think about, and I know this is something that a lot of parents think about because I get these questions all the time, is like, how do I balance this world that we live in where we have all these people wanting my kid to do a million different things, and understanding that I want my kid to be happy and healthy, and have a balance to their life and let them be a kid, especially at the younger ages. How would you talk to parents about kind of finding that balance between, hey, this thing, if you love it and you want to be great at it, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of work. But it's almost like youth sports in general has overemphasized that. And I think there's a dollar cost thing to that where people can make money the more you do work with them. But also, rectifying that with like, hey, we got to let our kids be kids too.
Yeah, and the challenge where I think like something like ice hockey and soccer are similar in that these are sports that require specific skills and awareness and a lot of hours of practice, right? They require a lot of reps, and so um, it's very hard. Whereas like what they call CGS sports, right? Centimeters, grams, seconds, right? Track, it's much easier to be a late developer. Swimming, it's much easier to be a late developer. Some other sports, it's much easier, but hockey and soccer, there's this huge push. Well, if you want to do this, then this is what you have to be doing at 16. So therefore you have to be doing this at 14. And it's just trickled down and down and down into, well, this is what you have to be doing at 4. Right. And what happens is so many kids lose their childhood. Now you add into that it's a team sport, right? So there's all this peer pressure to keep up with the team, right? We're on the team. Everyone else is doing this, so we better do it. Although my kid might not want to do it. Right. And so that I think is the challenge of, that causes a lot of this craziness where, sensible people who go, information is not the problem. I know this probably isn't great for my kid, but if we don't do it, and in 4 years he decides I really loves hockey, well, it's too late. We're out of the pipeline. Right. And so the problem with our sports in general is that these early decisions become self-fulfilling prophecies. You don't make the year-old team, it's almost impossible to get back in, instead of an environment where there was a lot more house league hockey or things like that, where a kid could dabble and be a great athlete. And then at 13, 14, like really be like, this is my sport,
It's one of the problems that I think arises a lot, especially at the younger ages, is like, at least my parents were this way. They're like, if you're going to play on a team, you're making a commitment to the team. And a lot of coaches at the younger ages I think they really want to do the right thing and instill the right things and instill responsibility. And, if you're part of a team, you show up and stuff like that. But that's where we run into like, well, if it's like lower level and they're younger and they're playing multiple sports, which I believe all of them should be, and they've got to miss a practice for a different sport. Oh my God, now what do we do? The coach is trying to, I think a lot of coaches have the right mindset of like teaching responsibility and stuff, but then, they'll bench that kid for missing the practice. But then in the same breath, they'll be like, we want multi-sport athletes. Well, you just bench the kid for going to a different practice. I understand what they're trying to do. I understand the parents wanting to commit and teach their kids responsibility. And when you say you're going to do something, you show up and you do it. So it's like kind of all these variables that are confounding that wind up coming to a head. And I think a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do with my hands now. What am I going to do? There's no right answer. And then what you just said, now if I miss a couple practices to be the multi-sport athlete and go to soccer or lacrosse or whatever, well, now the coach looks down on my kid, and in 3 years when it really matters, oh, he's the kid who didn't show up a couple times. And
right.
It's so tough.
It's so tough. And I think, from a parent perspective, like one of the things that you'd start out with is don't overschedule your kid. Like you control that, right? And just because they want to play hockey, basketball, soccer, baseball, and golf doesn't mean you have to say yes to all those things, right? The issue is they used to be more seasonal. There was this opportunity. So, as a coach, I can say, hey, listen, these 12 weeks, these 16 weeks, it's got to be hockey, whatever the number is, right? But after 16 weeks, please go play baseball. Right. But what it's become is, well, if you're going to play winter hockey, then you got to play the spring league, and then you got to do this thing in the summer, and then you got to do. So then for a parent who has, and again, it's not just parents scheduling, like there's a kid who goes, but I love baseball. I don't want to give it up. Right. And so this is our challenge. So I think as a parent, first of all, when your kids are young, that's the easiest time for them to sample stuff. So make sure they sample, right? It's very easy to go, wow, they were really good at hockey. Let's just play another season of hockey, versus going, you know what, that was great, but let's play some baseball. And next year, if they don't like baseball, fair enough, So sample young, and then do your best to schedule appropriately. And you know what? You're not a bad parent when you tell your kid no, or pick one. I remember with my daughter who played volleyball and soccer, and she was coming towards high school, and guess what? They're the same high school season. We're like, well, you got to pick one. You can pick whatever you want, but eventually, like, you're not going to be able to do both. And I think sometimes parents feel guilty that their kids want to do all these things. And then what happens is what I think is the saddest thing, right? You show up to some 10-year-old practice and the kids are zombies. There's no joy in there because they went to swimming in the morning and then they went to this flag football and then they came to hockey practice and then they have piano later, right? And it's like they're just exhausted. And that's what I think as a parent. You are the general contractor. You control that. Don't be afraid to say no to certain things and then know what you're committing to, right? I'm playing for Topher. Topher lays out, here's the season. This is going to be our priority commitment. And hey, 5 months out, Topher, listen, just so you know, it's grandma's 90th birthday on this date. We're going to miss a tournament. This is pretty important. No problem. Don't tell them on Thursday that you're not coming, right? And don't tell them, oh, by the way, we added jujitsu and piano and guitar, and now we can't come 2 days a week. Like, that's not fair to the team. So, the coaches are right, the parents are right, and we have to find ways to work together.
God forbid people work together in youth sports today. Well, that's one. It's funny. And I wonder if it's similar in soccer, John, and some of the other sports that you've been inundated with. We talk a lot about, and we had one of the top guys of USA Hockey talking to our community a couple of weeks ago. And he said the models that work the best when it comes to youth sports, it's competition on the ice and collaboration off the ice. Mm-hmm. Competition on the ice and collaboration off the ice. So on the ice, yeah, like we want to win, right? Like let's go. But then when it comes to creating rules for leagues, when it comes to, just different things that are the betterment for the whole of the community or the state or whatever it may be, it's so gosh darn competitive by these adults and adult egos that it almost ruins it. I don't want to say it ruins things, but it creates a lot of pressure. It creates a lot of uncertainty, and it just makes everybody go absolutely crazy. So maybe with some of the other sports that you work with, is there this sense, because in hockey it's competition on the ice and it's competition off the ice in most areas, like it's not collaborative off the ice. Do you see that in other sports? Do you see that with other people that you work with as it relates to that?
Oh yeah. I mean, systemically, this is all sports, and this is what's I think so sad and has made it unreachable for some people unless you're upper middle class and have tons of money, right? Because right, you're in Chicago, right? Like, why would a team of 10-year-olds in a city of 10 million people need to travel to Florida to get a game? Like, shouldn't you be able to get enough games there, right? And this is the issue. And so I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing some stuff with Ken Martell.
Okay.
Hockey.
Yeah.
And I think it was Finland, but it could have been Sweden. It was one of those Northern European countries. And what they were talking about was over there in a city, you might have the one pro team, and then you have all the junior clubs around it. And their goal is to promote their best to the pro team. But at the same time, if one of the junior clubs around is struggling, they would send resources, coaches. How do we make them better? Because we don't want to travel 4 hours for a game. We want to travel 20 minutes. Whereas in the US, our model, because of competition off the ice, is, they're struggling. Let's crush them. Let's steal their players.
Step on their throat.
Let's step on their throat when they're down, right? And so all of a sudden, you have a team of 10-year-olds in a giant city like New York or Boston or whatever that goes, whoa, we can't get a game here anymore. We need to start traveling. And now we're putting 10-year-olds on airplanes, traveling around the country, which again, you're bang for your buck, right? You're going to go get 20 minutes on the ice and spend 4 hours in the car. How is that going to make you better? Right. And so this is the issue.
John, there's scouts on in the stands at 12U, like, I don't know. There's
How's my
colleges.
kid going to move on to the NHL when he's 11 and the scouts aren't where he's at?
I mean, and this is another, I think, again, one of the most dangerous words in youth sport is the word elite. I think I've heard you guys talk about that, right? Like,
If everything is elite, is anything elite?
yeah, the Incredibles, right? Like, yeah, if everything's incredible, nothing's incredible, right? But again, people are like, oh, how does my kid make the elite team? I'm like, just change your team name. That's what everyone else does, right? But it's this. There is no elite 12-year-old hockey player. He's not going into the league for 6 years minimum. So whatever. And guess what? He hasn't hit puberty yet. So we have no idea what he's going to look like. And, so this is the challenge. And this is the issue is we're in such a rush to do more, younger to identify, right, talent, right, which we can't, right? The younger they are, the more likely we are to get it wrong. The more likely we are to pick the kids, right? And the first studies of this were done by Roger Barnsley in hockey, right? This idea of relative age. So if you're born within 3 months of whatever the age group cutoff is, you're far more likely to get identified as the AAA team or the elite player, when really all you are is older, right? And once puberty hits and everything gets equalized, then you watch it. I watch it like my own son, who now is, he's a senior in high school, and he posted this picture from homecoming dance of his freshman year where he looked like a little baby, and his senior year where he's 6'2" and 170 pounds. Right. And he's like two different people, but we're in such a hurry to judge the little baby and say he's going to make it or he's not going to make it,
Still waiting for that growth spurt. Hasn't happened for me yet. 5'4" as a freshman, 5'4" as a senior.
Thanks for taking that tap in. I was waiting for it. Won't lie to you.
I have learned to make the joke on myself.
It.
Yeah, I have learned to make the joke first. But it's so funny.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
So John, I wrote this blog today. It came out, and my phone has been literally ringing off the hook. And I put in part of it, I put like the records and the amount of games and the amount of hotel trips that teams in Chicago at the tier 1 level have done. And you literally have teams of 8-year-olds who have played 48 games by January 5th and have 5 hotel trips. These are 8-year-olds. You got 10-year-olds who have played 58 games and have taken 6 hotel trips. And like one of the things that I talk about a lot, and it's so funny, like if you understand development, right? If you got a degree in sports performance or human behavior, whether it's sports or anything, the way that youth models are set up today is completely opposite in so many different ways to how you actually develop kids to be good athletes.
Yeah.
And this thing, like, and it's funny, even if you are a crazy at the end of the day and your goal is to make your kid, an NHL hockey player by the time they're 18, what you're doing right now is not helping. It goes against so many different development principles. And we say it a lot, like the best 10-year-olds a lot of times aren't the best 12-year-olds. Best 12-year-olds aren't the best 15-year-olds. Best 15-year-olds aren't the best 18-year-olds. Best 18-year-olds aren't the best 20-year-olds. And why is that? So much of the time, it's because they lose a love for the game. It's because they lose a love for the game. All the elite athletes that I know, and I'm saying elite in the actual sense of the word, one of the biggest consistencies of all of them is they love to play the game of hockey. Yeah. And as a parent, as an adult, as a coach, as an administrator, all that kind of stuff, the environments that we create is a huge determining factor of that love for the game that these people have. And so if we continue to go down this road, like at some point there has to be a correction. It hasn't happened yet, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
I mean, there's so many things we could unpack there, right? Number one, right, the only player who doesn't get better is the one who quits, right? So like we have so many kids walking away. Well, they're done, and because they've got an 18-year-old's worth of sporting hours in a 10-year-old body, right? And that, 58 games and, 6 hotel. I mean, again, not everyone can afford that. So you have kids who don't even get in, who might have been a great hockey player, and they're, they don't get in because the parents like, we don't have $20,000, $30,000 for you to play hockey this year, right? You've got brothers and sisters. The other thing I think of when you say that many games, right, is years ago on Way of Champions podcast, our podcast, I talked to this guy, Raymond Verheyen, and he is a strength and conditioning coach, sports scientist at the top level of soccer, been to World Cups and European championships and top pro teams. And he said something to me about U.S. soccer, which I would say this applies to hockey too. He said, you develop slow players. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, your tournament system where you're playing multiple games in a day and 5 or 6 games in a weekend. He goes, think about it. That first game, your players are 100% physically, emotionally, mentally switched on. Game 2, a couple hours later, you're at 90%. Right? Game 3, you're at 80, right? So when you get to the final on a Sunday afternoon, it's like a war of attrition in hockey, right? Like who has enough players standing to play this game? Mm-hmm. And so what happens is as we get more physically tired and mentally tired, the game slows down. So he's like, your kids are playing more games than at 80% than they are playing at 100%. And so they're used to playing slow. So guess what happens? Not only are they more susceptible to injury, but their decision-making is slow because the game's moving slower. He goes, and so a kid in Europe who plays, 20 games in a year at 100%, all his reps are at, let's make it up, right? 60 decisions per minute. And your American kids are doing 40. Well, that kid over time is going to be better than your kid. And I think hockey is the same way because it's a perception action game, right? So if most of your game competition reps are happening at less than 100% physical and mental speed, congratulations, you're developing slow players.
That is one of the best things anyone has ever said on the podcast, to be honest with you. One of the best things that's ever been said on the podcast, for sure. No doubt about it. I think
the blind squirrel finds the nut once.
I remember talking to a couple of the AAA kids that I'm working with at TPH St. Louis here, and they were like, okay, what should I eat this weekend? I'm like, tell me about your game schedule. And they're like, all right, we're going to get in late Friday night. We play Saturday morning. Our first game is at 10 a.m. The game's over at 11:45, and our next game is less than 3 hours later. And I was like, less than 3 hours? You finish, and then you got to be back on the ice in 2 hours and 45 minutes. And these are like 14-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and exactly what you're saying. Like you're going to increase the rate of injury. They're going to be tired, which is going to increase the rate of injury. They're not thinking as fast. They're not playing as fast. But the reason that is happening is because parents want to be like, well, for me to spend the money to buy $3,000 to go this weekend, we're not going to go there for only 3 games in 3 days. We need to jam pack 5 games in 2 days and make it worth it. But like you're saying here, that's not worth it. Like
also, and John, you were a college coach. Let's look at it from an exposure perspective, because that's another thing. We got to get more games of exposure in front of these coaches if you're a midget or whatever, right? Well, John has just told you guys that by playing so many games in these weekends, your kid's going to be slower and probably process the game a little bit slower, and so they're probably going to not going to look as good.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So
Never mind, again, the chances of injury, right?
Yeah.
And like you just mentioned, Jeff, like 14-year-olds, right? So let's look at the typical 14-year-old. They're in the middle of their growth spurt, at least for boys, right? Their ankles hurt, their knees hurt. They can barely touch their knees if you ask them to bend over and touch their toes. It's like, their joints are all messed up. They're awkward. They're the most susceptible to injury because they can't move because they're growing so fast. And now we say more games, less rest, whatever, right? It's at the exact worst time for boys, we pile on and start to say these games matter.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting.
That's such a good point. And then you look at the periphery of that decision. Well, if we would have stayed home and played even just one game in town rival, even if that team wasn't as good, we're playing at 100, and then we could have got in one or two more workouts. So we're working on strength training, which as far as long-term athletic development for a teenager is going to make so many players much better in the long term than going on these weekends where you play 5 games in 2.5 days, if obviously the coach knows what they're doing. And so that's why I always ask people, like, what are your goals? Like, if your goal is to play junior hockey and your goal is to get a scholarship and play college hockey, then we should be making our decisions based off of that goal and then reverse engineer the best developmental path. So do these 5-game weekends and also spending all of the money in mom and dad's bank account. Are these the best for the actual development of these players? And the answer to me is it has never been yes. And so I'm like, why don't we just play way less games, guys? I mean, I feel like that solves a lot of problems.
Sadly, the business of sport is not aligned with the needs of the child in sport, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean that the coaches are bad. They're great coaches. It doesn't mean the organizations are bad. They're great. And I have to defend parents here of like, great. I hear everything you're saying. What's the alternative? Right? Because if we don't do this, well, then again, we're out of the system, and my kid loves hockey and those are his friends and he wants to do this or she wants to do this. And so that's our challenge, is it's really difficult to be the first. And, even in hockey, even when USA Hockey says, all right, we're going to play cross ice hockey, you still have cities where like, yeah, but you know what? 8-year-olds, we don't buy into that part of the ADM because, they need to play full ice hockey. Well, why? Because the parents want it. Well, why? Because they see their kid who's bigger, stronger, faster, skating up and down the ice on all that space and scoring 6 goals. So they think it's the greatest thing, instead of going, man, if my big, strong, fast kid actually had less time, less space, more interactions, more passes, more shots, more confrontations, he would be better in the long run, but I won't feel as good about it because he won't shine like he does on that big sheet of ice at 8 years old. And so even when a USA Hockey tries, in our lovely capitalist system, I'm not saying that, someone will always say, oh, you know what? But the pros play full ice, so we should play full ice too. Right. And the professional game, I mean, again, I learned this when I talked to Ken Martell again, when they got rid of icing for
Penalty kill.
Yeah. And, but they got rid of that. And he's like, you know why there's icing? And it like went back to like the 1930 Montreal Canadiens that were so good on the power play that they allow, that they would always score. So they changed the rule that teams could just dump the puck out or the Canadians would win every game. That's where that rule came from. But it doesn't help a youth hockey player who needs to learn, how do I play shorthanded? How do I carry a puck out of the zone? How do I find a pass instead of just dumping it down the ice, which any chump can do? Right. And he's like, so we got rid of that, and people are like, you're ruining the game. And it's like, well, you don't even know why the rule exists in the first place.
That's actually really funny. I had no idea that was the rule, but it is funny. Like,
I was almost going to ask you guys if you knew why, but then I didn't want to put you on
I'm
the
glad you
spot.
didn't, but I'll put myself on the spot, and there's absolutely zero chance that Jeffrey knew that. So
No, I'm the chump who got paid to ice it.
But that's so interesting. But you think about, like, Vex and I talk about all the time, the thing that's like nails on a chalkboard for us, which you see a lot in youth sports, is like, well, it's always been done this way. Right. And we're talking about an icing rule that was made in, what did you say it was, the 1930s?
I think it's 1930.
So we're almost
Canadian.
100 years later.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to revisit that. And trust me, like, I was actually just down in Nashville for the USA Hockey Winter Meetings, and the whole icing and delayed offsides rules that USA Hockey has put a stop to and oh my God, is that like a hot button topic for a lot of youth coaches.
Yeah.
And what I would just challenge people to think about, and you said it too, John, is like, hockey for 8-year-olds does not look like hockey for 20-year-olds.
Right.
Why? Like, it's a completely different thing.
They're not mini adults.
Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't we change some things around? So yeah, you're preaching to the choir there. I wanted to ask you something, and this for me is a really hot button topic for me. And it's something that you just mentioned, and it was something to the effect of, like, it's hard to be the first to be different, or something to that capacity. Something I'm really struggling with right now, because I agree. I don't agree with everything USA Hockey does by any means, but I do feel like they do a lot. But USA Hockey and probably a lot of other governing bodies are hamstrung with what they can and can't do based on the rules that they put in place. You mentioned the cross ice hockey. USA Hockey puts this rule in place, and boom, everybody goes to AAU because they don't agree with it. So they're hamstrung in some ways. And in my And also, people will say, hey, we need USA Hockey to step in here. But if it's something that they don't agree with, then they're like, no, USA Hockey should stay in their freaking lane and not, not govern. But anyway, it's hard to be the first to be different. It, for me, is a big one, because if there is going to be change in youth sports, it has to come from the grassroots ground level, in my opinion. It has to come from program directors that run youth organizations, or league directors that run these youth leagues, that say, enough of the BS. Like, we're going to do things a different way. However, there's so much pressure for people to change because it's been done a whole way. And there's also this business model that you talked about, that doing things in certain ways that might not align with development principles puts money in people's pockets. And so what I'm trying to do, and having a lot of failure with, is really talk to a lot of these program hockey directors, league directors and stuff, and say, how can we do this differently? How can we do this differently that puts the kids first, that puts these development principles first? And the response that I always get back is, if I do that, I won't have a team. Everybody's going to leave. If I don't do that, I won't have a league. Everybody's going to go somewhere else. And so how would you, I'm asking for advice here, honestly, like, how would you give me advice on what to potentially do with all these different variables in there to help to persuade, to help to entice, to help to incentivize the people at the grassroots level, especially the ones that know better, Those are the ones that really aggravate me. The ones that know that this is not the right way to do things, but still continue to do it to line their pockets, or they're too chicken, to stand out on an island and say, you know what, this is wrong and this is right, and this is how I'm going to do it. How would you give me advice on how to help to create that change at the grassroots levels with all those variables?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Is the $40 billion question. That's the youth sports annual revenue, I think, right now, right? So, the sports scientist Ross Tucker, I heard him talking about this once. He said, if we found out tomorrow that drinking coffee before 12 would be premature death, 9 coffee shops would say, you know what, we're not going to do that. And a 10th would be like, oh, there's a business opportunity. Right. So that's the realm we face. And those people you talk to are right. Like, hey, if I do that, that's great, but I won't have a team, or I won't have a league. So I think, realistically, it's like start small. Like, where are the areas that you can do things differently, right? That are best for kids. Do we have to play 58 games or whatever? Can we cut it to 48, right? Can we cut 2 of those trips out of there? But the only way you're going to do that is by having buy-in from your coaches, having excellent coaching, and educating parents on, well, why are we doing this, right? Because here, you know what drives parents? It's fear. It's fear. It's fear that if we don't do this, we're missing out, or I'm letting my kid down, right? And the problem as a parent, I can say this, right? But of the amount of kids that I've coached and seen parents make bad decisions for their kids at young ages, and someone said to me once, like, parents are vampires. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, what happens when a vampire looks in a mirror? I said, they don't see their own reflection. So no one sees the problem in their own kid. They just, that not my kid loves it more than everyone else, or my kid's not going to get hurt or whatever. And sadly, it's amazing the amount of parents that I run into 3 or 4 years later. And I'm like, oh my God, how's Joey? Doesn't play anymore. You were right. We should have listened to you, but we just thought, it wasn't the thing. And so we put the kid in a car, and instead of playing at the club 10 minutes away, we drove 2 hours each way. Right. And at first Joey was like, this is awesome. These kids are better. And pretty soon he missed his friends. He wasn't doing school events. Instead of practicing or going to the weight room and becoming an athlete, he spent that time in the car, and he liked the hockey piece, but eventually he just said, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. And to me, I mean, that's the part that breaks my heart, is a kid that had potential and could have been a lifelong hockey player or soccer player or whatever, is no longer playing because they needed their parents to make a tough decision early on and say, this is not best for you. So my advice is, and I don't know enough about hockey to say, well, do this, but start small. What changes can you make? And I think the younger the kids are, the easier it is to do it the right way, right? As they get older, you're caught up in having to be in this league so you can go to this thing, so you can get this rating, do this. But when they're younger, focus on joy, focus on improvement, and focus on developing love of the game, like you said, and intrinsic motivation, and then follow your kids' lead. What do they want to do?
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under-eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
I'm I'm a big fan of like very simple analogies when I'm talking to people, and the one that I've found works the best when I'm talking to parents when they get caught up and the vampire starts to creep in and they don't, they say before they have kids, I don't want to be that parent. And then they really are that parent. And I'm like, yes, yeah, okay. Like, yeah, I understand he wants to be on the ice 7 days a week, but we know that that's not good for him in multiple different areas of life. Your kid also wants to eat 300 Pixie Sticks a day. Would you allow your kid to down 300 Pixie Sticks a day? No, just because he likes Pixie Sticks, you're going to let him just murder all that sugar all day long? No, because you parent him and you look out for their best interest, and you don't allow that because you know that that's not what's in their best interest. So it's the same thing with like these types of things. And obviously, like you said, helping the coaches, the organization, all these people that have the knowledge need to do more, which we do on this podcast. Share the show, guys, to get that knowledge out there of what really helps, mentally, emotionally, all of these different things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this goes back to 10-year-olds playing 58 games already, and whatever it is, it's like it goes back to what we know in athlete development, right? Is that it's about being able to go 100% and then 20 to recover, right? And the best athletes in the world are on that, right? And in the middle of an NHL season, it's hard and you have a lot of games, but all they're doing between games is recovery, recovery, recovery. We don't let our kids recover, right? So because they never recover, they never go 100%, right? They're always at like 70. And when you are constantly at 70, it's like going to the weight room and a year later, you're still doing the same reps and lifting the same weight. You're not stressing the system. That's where the growth comes from. Well, we don't we stress our kids so much that they don't recover, that they never get stretched to the point to grow fast. And that again, so this all fits into too many games, not enough recovery. And again, that speed skating coach might be unbelievable. There's nothing wrong with her, nothing wrong with him, except it should be a day off.
So true. Well, we got into the depths of it, but just due to time's sakes, I want to ask you about this. I'm really big into team building. It's something that is a passion of mine, and you and Jerry wrote a book called Champion Teammate. I'm fascinated to know what's in the secret sauce when it comes to team building, when it comes to being a champion teammate. What do you think are a few things that you can share with our listeners that are really important as it pertains to building that culture and really being a team first?
Yeah, well, let me tell you the story behind the book, which is, I do a lot of team development work across a bunch of sports on different college teams, and Jerry's been doing it for 4 decades, and I think he's won 39 NCAA titles with his teams and stuff like that, right? And a lot of these teams that I work with, like they're like, what's a good book for us to read, right, as a team? And I'd recommend them. There's great books, Hard Hat, Legacy, things like that. Great stuff, right? But I was like, Jerry, like, like we do this work all the time. Like, let's put our own thing together. We've worked with these amazing teams and have great stories and all this sort of stuff. Let's put it together. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we wrote down like 25 or 30 ideas. It would be like, because we wanted to write this for like, a college athlete, a high school athlete, a middle school athlete. So all the chapters are like 4 pages max, right? And then they have discussion questions at the end that you can go through as a group and talk about these different things. So we do this and we divvy it up, and I'm like, sweet, awesome. And then I put it down, and 2 weeks later, I haven't even opened the thing. And Jerry's like, all right, I'm done. Where's your part? And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm like, get you something here soon, So it was really funny because it was so fun to write a book as a teammate of like, well, what's a good teammate do when you're writing a book together, and how do you collaborate and how do you push each other and everything. And so we ended up breaking this book into sort of three sections, right? How great teammates connect, how you compete, and how you lead. Right. And so that's the sort of when you ask for what's the secret sauce, right? Well, first of all, we have to connect. And where does connection come from? It's a word that we don't like to use in sports, but it's love, right? Love of coach, of their
Use it
athletes,
all the time. I love it.
love of, yeah, but people look at it and they're like, oh, well, love, whatever. No, like love is the secret ingredient, right? And out of love comes respect, not wanting to let your teammates down, asking yourself, what can I give instead of what can I get, right? These are all the things. And then when you have that love and you have that environment, and like, these are all different little chapters in it, right? Standards, not rules, right? So when you make rules, you have kids, what do kids do to rules? They look, how can I break them? When you have standards are things that you aspire to, right? So great teams have standards, high standards and not very many rules. We go through that. Then we talk about the leadership piece, right? How servant leadership, and how can I be selfless, and how can I give to others? And then we talk about the compete piece, right? Like, and the sort of the biggest thing for us chapter there, how do I win the day? Right? Everyone wants to win on Saturday. How do I win the day today? Right? And so that's it. Like, and if I win enough days in a row, by showing up, embracing the process, getting a little bit better, bringing the right focus and everything, we have the best chance to win 6 months from now. And so, yeah, that's what the book is. And it's been like the super cool journey. Just the amount, the Stanfords and the North Carolinas and the Syracuses who are like, yeah, we'll take 60 of those. We'll take 50. We're reading it as a team. And then, I had like a picture sent, like the assistant coach at Notre Dame lacrosse, like right after they won the national championship. He's like, this was a big part of it. And so it's been super cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
I literally gave like a mini speech to a nationwide company today about winning the day. And I'm giving 250 of their employees a speech in March about winning the day and how to break that down and how that builds confidence and success and all those things. That so many people are so outcome driven instead of focusing on the process and then just killing that today, and then go to sleep, reflect, learn, adapt, apply, win the day tomorrow, go to sleep, reflect, learn, adapt, apply, and just continue that cycle. You're guaranteed to get better, like guaranteed, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
That's love that, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's like, again, it makes sense, right? None of this is like groundbreaking things or whatever, but it's hard to do. Right? It's hard to build a culture. It's hard to do that. One of my, I haven't done in our podcast, we haven't done a ton of ice hockey ones. I need to do more. But one of my favorites, when I coached at UVM, I got to know Marty St. Louis, and I just reposted Marty's podcast that he did with us a couple of years ago. This was before he was the Canadiens coach. And I said, what was the key to your success? He goes, you know what? I was just really good at getting better.
Mic drop.
I think I was better than most people at getting better. Right. And that's it. Right. Like, what if we just taught our kids from young, just be really good at getting better, and things tend to work out.
I love that so much. We had Marty on our podcast too, and he said that exact same line. I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, but I was the best at getting better. And man, Vex, we probably reference that once every month or two with people
at least 100 times by now. I'd probably say,
yeah,
maybe 200, honestly.
But it's so true. And to just like tie this entire conversation back together, what Marty St. Louis, here's this guy who's, maybe an inch or two taller than I am, and he's going down as one of the top players of all time. He's in National Hockey League Hockey Hall of Fame. He was the best at getting better. What are the environments that we can put our kids in to make sure that they're getting better? And the first part of that is they have to want to get better. And if they
like when I worked at UVM, right. And Marty, so at this point, Marty was done at college. He was with Calgary. Right.
So he wasn't Martin St. Louis that we know.
He was not Marty. He was a fourth line guy who went back and forth, to the minors and whatever.
He was just Martin.
But so he would come back in the summer. Right. And it was cool. Like I had like the front row seat to the best pickup games of hockey you could ever watch, because all the NHL guys would come back. And at that point, it was like Marty, John LeClaire, Aaron Miller, Tim Thomas, Patrick Sharp, just playing pickup hockey. And I'd eat my lunch watching these guys play before they got rid of the ice at Gutterson for the summer. And it was awesome. But then, Marty would hang around, and every morning, the athletes who were on campus would lift. He was always the first guy there, like an hour before everyone, right? After they left, he was the last guy to leave, right? He'd go play pickup. He'd come back later on, go for a run. We'd play pickup soccer or something like that. And I just remember, like, I've never seen an athlete who works this hard. And then, when he, got with the right coach and the right environment, and goes from a fourth liner to the leading scorer and Lady Bing and then the MVP. And it's like, he just got better every day. And when his opportunity came, he was ready to take it. And I mean, that's not like some secret. It's just really, really, really hard to do. And I think it starts with believing in yourself. And you don't believe in yourself unless you own it, unless it's your journey, right? It wasn't Marty's parents going, come on, Marty, get to the weight room, right? That was him, right? And so I see so many parents, it's their dream and not their kid's dream. And I think one of the best things you can do as a parent is eventually accept that whatever you see as your kid's potential, if it's not their dream, if it's not their drive, if they are not frothing at the mouth for it every moment, they're not going to make it. And that's okay. That's great. Like, because they can be good at so many other things. There's so many things to do in the world. And I'm not saying you say, sit on the couch and just play video games. But what I'm saying is, like, there's lots of sports, and, they can do them for their life. And so, I don't know, I'm rambling now. I'll get off my soapbox.
That's a great soapbox to be on for sure. And it's funny you mentioned St. Louis, because when I do my parent talks, one of the clips that I play is from him, and he talks about how influential his mom was to him making the NHL. His mom knows nothing about hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Right? His mom knows absolutely nothing about hockey, and she was the reason why he thinks he made the NHL. Just goes to show you how important so many things that we're talking about, the life skills, the leadership, the being a good teammate, the being a good person. Here's a guy that's in the Hall of Fame, and he credits somebody who knows nothing about hockey for him being, a great hockey player.
And most people who make it that level talk about their parents being, David Epstein used the word, not pushy, but pulley. Sort of like, what's your goals? How can I help you achieve them? These are your goals. These are your dreams, not mine, And so that's the typical sport parent story. Even the Tiger Woods of the world, right? Tiger Woods is very open of, like, this was my dream. It wasn't Earl's dream. He thought I could be great and whatever, but it was always me wanting to go to the golf course or hit more balls or this or that, So it's like, and I'm not saying Earl Woods is the model parent. I'm just saying that, this idea that the parents are driving the bus the whole time is not really the typical way. That usually ends in disaster.
For sure. Well, John, we really appreciate all your time here today, and continue to do the great work that you're doing. We're going to always support what you do. If you can, before we let you go, tell our listeners a little bit about where they can find you, social media, website, some of the fun things that you have coming up. Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to know more.
Yeah, I mean, the mothership is just changingthegameproject.com. And if you go there and click the button that says join the movement, put in your email, you get the newsletter. We do a weekly podcast for 400 and something straight weeks here, which is really fun. The books are all on Amazon. Champion Teammate, we talked about. Every Moment Matters, which is the coaching book, which I think we talked about last time on the podcast. And stuff like that. And that's great. And yeah, I'm about to launch like a whole membership site. I have all this content, all these courses and all these interviews just sitting there in the ether. And so in probably mid-February, it'll all be under one thing, one membership for a club. All your coaches, all your parents get access to hundreds of hours of stuff. I'm just in the process of finishing that up. So
nice. Well, let us know, and then we'll send it out to everybody else. And if you have a couple more minutes, I don't know if you're on a timestamp here. If you have 5 more minutes, we do a 10 questions with all our guests that is housed in our hockey think tank community, which is probably something similar to what you're building right now.
Yeah.
And so if we have a couple of minutes, but thank you. This was such great stuff, and it's going to be so valuable for all of our listeners.
Love it. Love it.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.